What are your major thoughts about this?
Well, the lawyer in me is like tingling with excitement because this is just an amazing case. This is a textbook classic, and I'm sure it'll be taught in law schools for many years. But I think it's good that we're having this debate. It's obviously something that was ripe, but now it has happened. I think I'll say two big things. First of all, I absolutely understand why Apple is taking the position it is. I think it's smart. Apple is not an arm of law enforcement. It is not an arm of the government. It has to put its customer interests first, which I think it's doing here. And by the way, it's a good corporate citizen. When it was required to disclose the data in the cloud, it handed it over. There's established law there. But this is not an established area. This has not been clarified by court rulings, and I think Apple has rightly said our position is in defense of our clients' privacy. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win in the end.
That was my next question.
My guess, I mean, this is a tough case, but my guess is ultimately they are going to have to provide access. If the courts will order them, it may go to the Supreme Court. This is a very unusual case, and I do think a court could craft a remedy that would meet the needs of the government without jeopardizing much privacy of anyone else. And let me just point out one key thing here. The user of the cell phone is dead. I could write now there is no privacy interest left in someone who is dead. Now, I could write an opinion, it'll be a little premature, but I could write an opinion saying that in cases where the suspect is dead, yes, the government has a right to gain access to this. I think the technology question, which I cannot answer, is there a way to do this that lets the government into this cell phone and only this cell phone and does not threaten the security of everyone else? Given what software engineers can do today, my hunch is there must be a way to do that.
But you believe that the dead person dynamic is a limiting principle. And after that, it doesn't bleed out into something else.
It could easily be a limiting principle. If I'm sitting on the Supreme Court, and by the way, the Supreme Court likes to do limiting principles. They only like to decide the case in front of them, not sweeping things that affect everyone else. So if we said, okay, in this case, the user of the cell phone, by the way, he also didn't even own it. Maybe we could even say that. He didn't own the phone and he's dead. In cases like that, where there's strong, evidence of a crime, yes, the government has access. Now, how many of those are there going to be? Like practically none.
So there's some chatter that Apple might go through First Amendment law protections of free speech and that they might treat code as free speech. Do you think that's an effective argument?
No, free speech is not going to win the day here. I mean, virtually, the right to privacy, the right to speech, all of these typically give way under the Constitution to the needs of law enforcement in certain circumstances to gain evidence of a crime. This has been raging, the First Amendment debate about whether reporters have to disclose their sources. That issue has been raging for a long, long time. And the courts have ruled over and over again against the press and in favor of law enforcement. So by analogizing to that, I have a feeling the First Amendment argument is not going to take Apple very far, but in the court of public opinion, I think it'll gain in some favor.
On the subject of public opinion, I think it's fascinating to watch how the discussion is evolving and people who are daring to counter the security services on a question of terrorism, which clearly the FBI and the DOJ thought they might have in the bag anyway, which is why they chose this instance.
Right.
And I wonder if that's about the deep distrust that many millions of people have now about the security forces and the NSA, and just that if they get technology, they're going to use it. And they'll use it to the extent of their legal boundaries and arguably over that. And that's a debate that's changed, I think, in this country since Snowden.
Absolutely. And by the way, there's a big populist crowd on the other side of that, too, that would say, like, well, how dare you not support the government in a terrorist case?
Of course, but it's interesting that people even dare to speak out.
That's true.
Usually you would expect that to just wash over everything and everybody would be quiet.
And also, let's think, who is the Apple constituency here? I don't think they're pretty sophisticated users of technology. They're well educated for the most part. I think they're going to tilt. They're more worried about the Snowden significance and the intrusion of government than a lot of people whose primary concern would be security and terrorism.
Or in fairness, that China would get hold of the technology, or everybody else would get the, that's the argument.
So I think you're going to see a very sharp political divide here between the people who put safety first are going to be on the side of the government, and people who put privacy first are going to be on the side of Apple. But ultimately, I don't think that's what's going to turn on, this case is going to turn on. There are established precedents for when law enforcement gains access. This is a case of first impression. We're going to need a ruling. I think it could be a good ruling. It's going to help clarify these issues. You know, some people say, oh, Congress should do it. Yeah, right. Good luck with that.
That was our discussion earlier this morning. Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
How odd that would be to actually have a law written and passed on this thing.
Exactly. That is not going to happen. So the fact is, I think it's healthy that it's going to be litigated in the courts and will be clarified, and a lot more facts will come out. Now, one thing that worries me is Apple has said, you're not just asking us for information you have, you're asking us to take affirmative steps to create something to assist you to break into this. That's different from handing over what's already in the cloud. That argument worries me a little bit, because what if the government comes back and say, okay, Apple, give us all the underlying proprietary software for how you program these phones, and then we will create the program that breaks into it. Well, I suspect they can.
I think the thinking is they could, but it would take a lot longer.
It would take a lot longer. They're going to have to hire the experts to do it. But that would be consistent with saying, oh, we're just asking you for information you already have. But that is information I personally would not want the government to have. That would really blow open the possibility they could break into anyone's phone. So I would be very cautious if I was Apple about pushing that argument too far.
It's going to be a story with us for a long time, as you said,
Absolutely.
Jim. It's good seeing you.
Great to see
Jim
you,
Stewart of the New York
Thank you.
Times.
Hey YouTube fans, I'm Landon Dowdy from CNBC. Thanks so much for checking out our channel. Here you'll find videos packed with all the info that you need to be smarter about your finances. Be sure and subscribe by clicking right here, and click on all the videos around me to see CNBC's original series Young Money, Tech Bet, Kramer's Mad Money, and all the latest from CNBC.